Hello, everybody. 1400 Nunu here with you. We are about to tap in and look at this update that's going on right now with the case of Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. This is day 2 of trial, and since there is no cameras in the courtroom, we have to listen to these guys because this guy on the right was actually in the courtroom and got to see the surveillance footage that we have been waiting to see, but we cannot. So, without further ado, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it right now, shall we?
But let's start with the body camera video that was shown in court today. What did you see?
Yeah, Chris. So they came out of the gate with that. There were two different officers that testified. So we had two different angles of the body cam. But the first officer is actually the officer that made the arrest. He was an SRO. He's in his office and he gets the call there's been a stabbing at the stadium. So he's running out there, seeing what's going on. Of course, he's seeing the frenzy of students running in every which way. And then he's asking, where's the action at? Where am I going here? And he sees the north side of the stadium. So he gets over there and everyone's telling him, it's that kid, because these kids at Memorial High School did not have any idea who Karmelo Anthony was. But he's in the gray hoodie, he's in the dark blue or the black sweatpants, and that they're pointing him out because one of the kids that testified, and we'll get to them, was following him while on 911. So they obviously saw this kid, and he wasn't running outside the stadium. So anyway, the officer ends up approaching him.
Okay, so basically, so far, what he's saying is that on the police surveillance footage or the webcam that they have, the body cam, Karmelo was being pointed out by all the students after the situation happened. So after the stabbing, them niggas are on the phone with the police. The police come down. They start pointing him out, and they got his ass from there.
And the body cam comes on during the apprehension. So it wasn't on during, most of it, but when it comes on, we start seeing it there. And the thing about it, Karmelo actually, Chris, was cooperating. He was compliant. He was following orders. He was, respectful. What's your name? He was spelling his name out without the officer even prompting him. And he goes over and he sits him down, and then the officer cuffs him just to detain him, before they even, take him off campus in the squad car down to the jail, any of that. But one of the most important things about one of these body cams, Chris, is the audio, because you hear they're walking along and the officer's kind of just doing some back and forth with them. And then you hear Karmelo say, he put his hands on me. I told him not to. And that's the part that the prosecution's harping on, the I told him not to part, because they're pretty much saying that part's a lie. Every account that we've heard so far in the reporting over the last year and some of the students today was just the whole touch me and see what happens.
That is very true. For the whole year, that's all I've been hearing is touch me and see what happens. Punch me and see what happens. But saying he put his hands on me, I told him not to, that's different. That is a lot different than how they're trying to say it, right? It makes it sound a lot more intentional.
It wasn't don't touch me. It wasn't, if you keep your hands off me, we're cool. It was touch me and see what happens, making it sound more on the offensive. But when he said that statement, though, Chris, the whole I told him not to put his hands on me and all that, he was sobbing. The emotion was you heard it. You didn't see his face, but you heard it instantaneously. And so then a few minutes goes by, and then he seems a little bit calmer. Like you were just, high energy here, high, sad energy, and then now you're calm and just, yeah, my name's Karmelo Anthony, and I'm a senior or what have you. But anyway, that was the important part of that statement. Now, another statement made that camera didn't pick up, but from the other officer who was there, who had, I don't know, a better audio on her camera, they radioed in, we have the alleged suspect. Karmelo then goes, it's not alleged, I did it. So there was an immediate.
See, this is the part that pisses me off because it's like no one talks about this part, but it's like, why the hell would you tell the fucking police that it's not alleged that I did it for? Yeah, I know you're trying to claim self-defense, but nigga, you ain't supposed to tell them niggas nothing, bro. Didn't your parents teach you some shit, bro?
Admission, within 6 minutes of this stabbing happening. But the thing about it, Chris, and one of those body cam videos, the second one, you actually saw, they're going up there, scoping the scene and figuring everything out, talking to some of the students. You actually see graphic in nature, the chest compressions being done on what we now know to be Austin Metcalf's lifeless body. You saw a little blood around. You just see him just kind of, splayed out, and you hear a bunch of, the kids, yelling out, "That was my brother. They stabbed my brother. That's my best friend." And, all this different stuff. And we heard a 911 call made by the students. So we heard a lot of audio visuals today, Chris. Very graphic in nature, real emotional. And, I'm sitting 2 rows behind the Metcalf family every single day. I could reach out and touch his father. That's how close he is to me. And, for the majority of the day, he's just holding his head in his hands, just taking in all the facts. I mean, he's been dealing with this for a year, but when you see, the
Yeah, and I can only imagine what the parents are going through, man. Because this only happened last year. So this is still very fresh. And going through this trial, they have to bring back up facts and all these things. And he's probably seen footage, and it's just like, yeah, man. I'm sorry for the family, man.
your son laying there lifeless. You hear 911 calls. You're seeing all the love and support that he was getting, from the friends and the coaches. So like he was supported, but to what avail because he's not here anymore.
As the body cam was playing, what
Mhm.
was Karmelo doing in the courtroom?
That's interesting, Chris, because I was, I'm right here in the Metcalf camp, but I try to, keep my head on a swivel, not only to the jury, but over on that side of the courtroom as well. And it's just very stoic. It's just very, I don't know if the word emotionless is correct because I'm sure they're feeling a lot of things, but maybe emotionless not in a negative sense, but it just very, stale faced.
Oh, yeah. Of course he's still faced and stoic faced. This is trial, bro. This shit's real. And you don't want to be on there looking like no bitch, but you don't want to be on there looking like you just overly tough. So you just want to keep it like super minimal, just emotionless, just chilling, type of way. But damn.
I imagine, Carmelo's sitting there. He's just looking. He's not moving around. He's not looking around the courtroom. He's not rocking his chair. He's just looking right at it because I'm sure he's reliving, his version of what went down that day and probably, regretting the biggest mistake of his life.
Of course he is. At the end of the day, the nigga is 18 years old. I know earlier he said, "Oh, he doesn't look like a kid." He is still young. He's still a kid. He's 18. He's a kid. When this happened, he was 17. You don't think he's thinking? And of course he is, bro. He's young, and he didn't mean to kill this nigga. He's like I said before. He's not a cold-blooded murderer, bro. But you guys are trying to paint this picture like he is. Does he deserve a consequence? Yes. But first-degree murder, man.
And you're looking across at his family and they're just, just taking that in. And I have to think about it from that point of view as well, Chris.
Yep, that is true too. And at the end of the day, like I said, this situation doesn't. It's a lose-lose on each side. Carmelo might end up in jail for the rest of his life. And then now his parents lost a son who had a promising future. The Metcalfs already lost their son. So there's no winning on either side, no matter what perspective you look at. And of course, the worst perspective is Austin's Metcalf's perspective, where he's no longer here because of this. So I get it.
Because could you imagine your son, your brother, your nephew, this kid that you've seen grow up, and now he's being accused of these, the maximum crimes you could be accused of, killing someone. So they're over there just a little more stale, not in a negative sense, but just real cemented in, hearing what's going on. But of course, there's visceral, audible emotion on the Metcalf side.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like you've seen this video, you wonder if the Metcalf family had seen that video before it being played in court and just having to relive all of this. I know today too that there were pictures up on the screen where we saw the alleged murder weapon. We saw this knife that was used to stab Austin Metcalf.
Yeah, man. The video probably brought back so much trauma and so much emotions on the courtroom. I could tell, especially for the parents. Like I said, this is still a fresh case, so I can only imagine how they feel. Especially because this case has been so controversial that, man, they probably haven't even gotten the time to properly grieve anything. R.I.P. Austin Metcalf.
Just what was your reaction seeing that, and then how it worked into what prosecutors are alleging?
So the big takeaway from the knife, Chris, is that it has a 3.5-inch blade. It looked like a heavy duty knife. It's not what I expected it to look like. I'm sure you have too, plenty of different styles of pocket knives, but this one just looks like just one of the ones that won't break when you try to cut something. The blade is not going to bend on this one.
Yeah, so I'm not going to play the whole video, but just to give my little insight on what we have so far, since this is only day 2, outside of, the thing where Carmelo said, you know, he touched me, I told him not to. That's very different than what everyone's been saying for a whole year. So I want to know if there's any more little things like this that's going to come out, because like I said, with witnesses, bro, even though witnesses, they're always used in cases, they're not always reliable because sometimes they have a bias. Sometimes they might lie, to try to get, to sway shit. So, you can't always trust witnesses because they're not always the most reliable, right? Because that was audio recording of him saying that off of the police audio recording. So for the whole year, we're thinking that Carmelo said, touch me and see what happens, and then everyone's just making him out to be this cold-blooded murderer, like I said before. But whole time, that's not the case. Okay? None of his actions outside of him stabbing Austin Metcalf shows any type of premeditated killer. Okay? It shows someone who got in an altercation, you know, and he reacted. And he made the wrong choice. But that's what happened. And just because someone makes a wrong choice and it ends a life, and I know that everyone's gonna hate what I gotta say, but just because it ends a life doesn't mean that that person is always a bad person, right? People make mistakes. People do stuff that they can regret and wish they can take back. But sadly, he can't take it back, and he's gonna have to live the rest of his life with this. And he's young, and he has to face the rest of his life on the line. So yeah, like it's unfortunate, but this is what comes with these type of things, man, when you react out of emotion. Because realistically, there's no reason why a simple fight or simply just walking away couldn't have been the first choice. Now, of course, I understand these are teenage boys at the time, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes certain things are not worth it, man. You know? And look, a simple argument turned deadly. And now we have someone dead, and then we have the other side trying to claim self-defense. And because both of these things are racial, it has both sides split, and it's just not good, And it just shows also that anytime there's to a situation where a black or a white have an altercation and it ends up in a death, it never just affects the family or this family or it affects both communities because both sides are going to split down the middle and division is going to happen, and one side's going to be more sympathetic to one person than the other, and that's just how it works, man. It's just it's sad, but it's the truth, and that's why we got to do better. But this is day 2 of the trial, man. We're going to be keeping a close eye on this case until it comes down to the final jury and what they say, but this is only day 2. We're going to see if there's any more updates tomorrow, but y'all let me know in the comments what y'all think from this new discovery. It does Carmelo saying he put his hands on me, I told him not to, change the trajectory of the case? Because that is very different than what everybody's been claiming this whole year. Just a food for thought. Y'all let me know in the comments below. I'm signing out. Y'all like, comment, subscribe to this video. Let's push this through the algorithm, man. Peace.